Imagine being sealed off from the world. No sunlight, no clocks, no calendar, just the slow drip of water echoing through stone. The damp breath of the earth pressing in on you from all sides. Would you lose track of time, or would you lose your mind? This is a true story of Michel Siffre, who was born on January 3rd, 1939 in France. He wasn't your typical scientist. He was a geologist, a speleologist, that's a cave explorer, and a chronobiologist, a man who didn't just ask the big questions. He climbed down into the earth to find answers. What was his obsession? Time. Specifically, what happens to the human mind and body when all cues of time are stripped away? What happens to your sense of self when you can't see the sun, hear the world, or know what day it is? In 1972, Siffre embarked on his most famous, and some would say insane, experiment. He traveled to Midnight Cave near Del Rio, Texas. 400 feet beneath the surface, he created a makeshift lab and sealed himself in for 6 months. That's right, 205 days underground entirely alone. His goal? To study human circadian rhythms. Circadian rhythms are natural internal processes that regulate our sleep-wake cycles and repeat roughly every 24 hours. These rhythms are controlled by a tiny region in the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which responds primarily to light and darkness. When exposed to natural light, your brain tells your body it's time to be alert. When it's dark, it signals the production of melatonin, a hormone that helps you sleep. Circadian rhythms don't just influence sleep, they also affect body temperature, hormone levels, digestion, and even mood. When these rhythms are disrupted, like during jet lag, shift work, or isolation experiments like Michel Siffre's, the body can become confused, leading to sleep issues, fatigue, and cognitive changes. In short, circadian rhythms are your body's internal clock, and when it breaks, things get strange. In complete isolation, no clocks, no natural light, no contact except for occasional communication with his research team via a one-way audio line. They could hear him, but he couldn't hear them. He set up camp in a cavernous chamber, a tent, a wooden platform, scientific equipment, no clocks, no daylight, just his body and his mind. Question asked to Michel was, how did you pass the time in your isolation?
During your first day underground, temperatures were below freezing and humidity was 98%. I had bad equipment and just a small camp with a lot of things cramped inside. My feet were always wet and my body temperature got as low as 34 degrees Celsius, 93 degrees Fahrenheit. My pastimes were reading, writing, and doing research in the cave. I also spent a lot of time thinking about my future. Also, there were 2 tests I performed every time I called the surface. First, I took my pulse. Secondly, there was a psychological test. I had to count from 1 to 120 at the rate of 1 digit per second. With that test, we made a great discovery. It took me 5 minutes to count to 120. In other words, I psychologically experienced 5 real minutes as though they were 2.
Down there, his world was a surreal nightmare of silence. His body had to guess when to sleep, when to eat, when to wake up. Siffre logged his activities, took psychological and physical tests, and tried to keep himself sane. But the darkness doesn't play fair. Soon his perception of time was broken. He began taking what he thought were regular naps, but when his team above ground checked the logs, they realized he believed only 2 days had passed, when in reality 5 had. He once stayed awake for 52 hours straight, believing it was only a normal day's cycle. He began talking to spiders for companionship. At one point, he accidentally crushed one. He had given it a name and mourned it for days. He claimed to have had hallucinations. He was tricked by his inner thoughts. Time grew and shortened. His cycles of sleep and wakefulness went entirely haywire. However, he persevered. When Michel finally emerged from the cave on September 5th, 1972, he was a changed man. His hair had grown long, his body had weakened, and psychologically, he was deeply shaken. He later described the experience as a kind of sensory suicide. He had voluntarily cut himself off from all that made life human, and it nearly broke him. The media was divided. He was regarded by some as a trailblazer, a contemporary Ulysses, who delved into the depths of the mind rather than the sea. Others thought he was reckless, perhaps a little insane. They questioned, why would someone do this to themselves? Siffre, however, knew why. His research fundamentally changed our understanding of sleep, loneliness, and the body's circadian rhythm. NASA, deep-sea missions, and submarine crews, all of whom depend on circadian science to thrive in disjointed environments, would later benefit from his research. Michel Siffre continued his studies into human biology and time for decades. He returned to caves later in life, less extreme, more cautious, but nevertheless he was not quite the same. He passed away on August 25, 2024 at the age of 85. But his legacy? Timeless. In the end, Michel Siffre proved something profound, that time is not just measured in seconds or hours, it lives inside us. And when we lose touch with it, we risk losing touch with ourselves. And he taught us that in the silence of the cave, the loudest thing you'll hear is yourself. Thanks for watching this video. If this story intrigued you, subscribe for more tales that dive deep into the forgotten corners of science, history, and myth. And let me know in the comments, would you survive in a cave for 205 days?